if it does. So again, everyone, welcome to tonight's episode or session, Conversations in Black. I started Conversations in Black to amplify Black voices. Kicked it off in March for Women's History Month. And now we're in April and going through May. We'll have a couple guys in May. So it's not just for women, it's for men and women. So make sure you check us out on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. And you can check my profile for the link for the future topics and whatnot. So tonight we have Julia Rock, and we have Julia Rock because she is in sports. She's doing work in the sports field, and she'll tell us more about that. But how that came about is my son, who I've mentioned several times, when he told me he was pursuing sports management, I asked how I can help. And his response was by having women in sports on your podcast. So I also have a podcast. It's an intimate conversation with women of color. And I paused the podcast to focus on audio events. So doing that for now. But again, so Julia is the first sports related woman that I have. And so I'm so excited to have her and to hear from her. And Julia, tell us more about yourself other than being from Bed-Stuy and now you're in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, so hello everyone. So I'm Julia Rock. I am a career transition coach for pro and student basketball athletes. I was a career coach for corporate professionals for a good bit of time. And then last year, I shifted to coaching basketball athletes. I will be upfront. I have no athletic ability, so I have not played a sport previously. I can barely walk in a straight line, but I'm committed to helping athletes who look like me to transition successfully out of sports and making sure they understand their identity, understand their opportunities, and their transferable skills so they can translate those skills into high-paying, in-demand careers. I've been a career coach unofficially since 2006 and more officially since 2013. And so over that time, I've built up a wealth of expertise and knowledge around career advancement, leadership development, career development, job search strategy, and the like. And so after coaching corporate professionals for such a long time, I realized that there were skills that I could leverage to help an underserved population when it comes to athletes, because not all basketball players who are exiting sports have LeBron and Steph Curry endorsements. So, so they may need new opportunities after they leave sports. And so I help to open the aperture for them to see what's out there, and to help, hopefully make that transition successful. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm a corpreneur. So I tell people that I'm a corpreneur. So I have a day job. I'm in accounting management. And then I also run my business.
Awesome.
And so I'm from Brownsville, not Bed-Stuy. So have to clarify that just in case for other Brownsville people who may be listening. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, so represent for sure, right? let the people know, okay, not the Bronx, Brownsville. I hear that. I hear that. And so I do want to shout out, my son is here. So yay, happy to see him here.
Welcome.
Yes, hello there, John. That is awesome. So, being a corpreneur, so I like that. I think that's the first time that I've heard that. And being over in Buenos Aires, so now are you working remotely, or is the company that you're working for located in Buenos Aires?
Yes, so the company that I work for, they have a location here in Buenos Aires. So they're a US-based firm, but they have a location here in Buenos Aires. And so I have an opportunity to go into the office here on a hybrid schedule right now.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah. So, you mentioned that the reason why you're focusing on helping athletes, basketball players in particular, transition because they're underrepresented and you're wanting to help people that look like you. Why else is that important to you? Why is it important for you to do what you're doing?
Because I mean, when I think about going into career coaching at the very beginning, so again, I've been in the career coaching game a long time. And when I started, it was important to me for people to have a level playing field, because I was recruiting for my corporate job at one point, and I was seeing the disparity in the performance from a delivery perspective when I would do recruiting, career fairs, and so on. I saw the disparity in performance, with Black candidates versus non-Black candidates. And it's not for lack of intellect or skills or degrees, but it's the way they were coming across. And what I realized is that some of the other ethnic groups, they had access to information, they had access to prep, they had access to know how to better present themselves than some of the candidates who look like me, even though they had the same skill set. And so for me, I wanted to come in and level the playing field for them, so that when it comes to, when people think about being disadvantaged and what have you, I want to help change that conversation to say that we too have the tools to be successful in our careers, and we don't have to let our careers happen to us. And so, so the same thing goes for now helping athletes, because when you perform at a high level as an athlete, that's what and then transitioning out, you now feel like the playing field is no longer level, because you're in a space that you're unfamiliar with. It's not something that you're used to doing. Some athletes have never had to hold a real job or anything like that. And so how can I now again get back into that space of helping to level the playing field so that people don't feel disadvantaged? And what's also important is when it comes to careers generally, when people have successful careers, it then bleeds over into all the other areas of their lives. When you hear people talk about making more money, having the right, work-life balance, that then translates into how they're able to spend time with their family, how they feel, looking in the mirror every day, their self-esteem. All these things can help be improved when people have the right career opportunities at work. And so for all of those reasons, I wanted to make sure that I had a hand in helping folks. And, when I started looking at from career transition coaches for athletes, many of them didn't look like me. And I said, and when I started as a career coach back in 2013, a lot of folks didn't look like me. And I'm like, well, how can I start to change the conversation and make a name for the folks who look like me? So.
No, that's awesome. And, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, so with my son, I was the president of his basketball booster. I was the president of the booster club for his basketball team. And I started, what was it called? Player development. And so I started the player development to take care of the players off of the court, right? So leaving the on court to the coaches, and then off the court, wanting to expose them to role models and, take them on field trips, mentoring, tutoring, all of those different things. Now, my son went to an affluent school, right? And predominantly a white school. And so what I noticed is, because I didn't get a lot of involvement, reason being is because they had access. So they had everything that you're talking about. And it wasn't any reason for them really to participate, because what I was trying to give the students, the others were already getting. So I definitely appreciate what you're doing, right? And access is it's key, because we don't always have access, right? And or we have to put in so much effort to get that access. So we're always starting from so far behind. So what you're doing is great.
Thank you so much. And that's the point, right? That so many folks are starting from behind, because it's not for lack of wanting to know, it's that they just didn't know it was out there. I can't tell you some of the conversations I've had with athletes who are just like, I don't really know how to put a resume together. I've never had to. And so it's some, for a lot of these conversations, it's basic things that can enable them to be successful in their careers ahead. But if you don't have the resources or the access to the resources to position you, then like you said, you're starting from behind, and it's not that you're not talented, but you're starting 10 steps behind everyone else, which isn't fair. So how can I help to level that playing field and bring you closer to the starting line with everyone else?
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say is your success story? Like if you think of one athlete, who comes to mind and why?
So it's actually the athlete that I started with, who actually changed my whole thought process and made me want to shift into helping athletes. So one athlete, I was actually coaching his sister on the corporate side. So she was transitioning roles and I was helping her get a promotion and negotiate salary and so on. And so we were working together and she said, hey, my brother's coming back from playing basketball overseas. And he's going to need help getting a job. Would you be willing to help him and work with him? She's like, I love working with you. And I think, if you had the chance to work with him, that would be helpful. So I said, sure, no problem. I've never coached an athlete, but we're going to go for it and see what happens. And so we engaged in the coaching process. He never really had to interview before, never really had to do resume development or how to position himself, how to give a 30-second spiel or anything like that, things to consider in salary negotiation, et cetera. And so we went through my various coaching sessions. And then at the end of it, he was able to, present himself for a coaching opportunity that he ultimately got, which was really exciting for me. And also the catalyst, because I was excited for him and we celebrated, but then that was when I took the step back to say, wait, he can't be the only one. And so that's really what shifted it for me to say, hey, there's a lot of people that I can help with this knowledge to hopefully have similar success. And so that's really the story that kind of got it started for me. And like I said, we celebrated, but then it also was the light bulb to say, hey, there's more people you can help.
Yeah, there's more out needing what and that, and that's how things happen, right? You're wanting to do a thing and sometimes you're not quite sure what that thing is. Then when you realize what it is and you go for it, the universe shows you that it was needed. Somebody was waiting for you to do that thing, whatever that thing is. And so that's what I'm saying to our listeners. There's something that people are waiting on you to start doing, to give to them. So we all have a purpose. So, if you haven't learned what your purpose is, just continue to search for it because it's out there. So before we, continue the conversation, I just want to pause for a moment just to welcome anyone on the stage who has a comment or has any questions. Feel free to raise your hand and I'll bring you up to the stage. Otherwise, if you don't want to speak, feel free to just go ahead and send me a message in LinkedIn and I'll ask your question and or read your comment out. So at any point, just feel free to raise your hand and we can bring you on. I want to kind of call out, you're talking about doing things for Black athletes because of the lack of access that we have. And there is someone who is actually listening. He reached out to me because of a new initiative of mine. And I'm going to talk a lot about my son. So just letting you all know that if you haven't already figured that out. And that's because this session is really dedicated to him. He's the reason why I'm talking to Julia, why I'm talking to a woman who in sports. And when we say sports, whether sports management, whether as an athlete, et cetera, she's doing something sports related. And so that's what we're talking about. But anyway, so I started a sailing pipeline. My son in his the summer before 9th grade, he started sailing. So sailing as in sailing a boat. I have a hard time with that word, but not selling, but sailing.
Sailing on the water. Okay.
Yes, sailing on the water. So he was in the program, graduated from the program, came back as an assistant instructor. They invited me to be on a board. And so December of last year, when we were having our board meeting, I said, hey, I want to do this thing. And the president said, go for it. And so that thing is the sailing on the water pipeline. So I partnered with Hampton University because they are the only HBCU that has sailing. And so I've started a pipeline. Our program is for 10 to 17-year-olds. So to teach them how to sail. So we're focused on them, getting them interested in sailing. And today I received an email from the first parent who is responding to the pipeline. So that was awesome. Her daughter's 12. Anyway, so we're focused on that, the 10 to 17-year-olds. And we're also focused on those that are like there and ready to be in a college program, sailing program. And so that's my audience. That's what I'm focused on. But anyway, I posted it on LinkedIn. And so, like I said, somebody who's listening, he reached out to me and say, hey, I'm doing something, or I'm about to start a program in Compton, or for kids in Compton. So I'm not going to shout his name out, but he is listening. And if he wants to come on and, and kind of talk a little bit, just feel free to raise your hand. But again, that's access, right? Because Compton is not that near to the water. I don't think. I know that Long Beach is. So in Compton and Long Beach is kind of near one another. So I guess they're closer than not. But that was great, right? Because he saw a need and he wanted to fill that need. Same with me. I want to get more Black kids out on the water. And so that's why I'm passionate about what I'm doing.
And I think that that's the key point, right? Is that we're, seeing a need and filling it. And so that's part of the reason why I was okay transitioning out of coaching corporate professionals. Nowadays, you can't throw a stone without hitting a career coach. And that's no shade to other career coaches. It's just the fact that there's a lot of us out there serving corporate professionals, giving resume advice and giving LinkedIn advice and so on. But in another space, when it comes to athletes, there are not a lot of people with my specific background who are able to help athletes transition, because, other athletes can talk about their transitions, but because I have a career coaching background, I can really try. And then I have a management background and leadership development background. These are things that are for folks who are seeking to go up the ladder or start a business. These are key things that I can help to share for folks that need it the most. We talk a lot about purpose and making sure, how do you know what your purpose is? And I feel, just personally for me, that my purpose has always been to serve people. It has always been to serve people. I'm a believer in Christ, and so I feel like, for me, it's just about kind of living that Christ-like, how do I serve other people? And so any opportunity that I have to serve a group of people that are especially not being served, I want to tap in there. And so, that's why I'm really passionate about this work, is because, how can I help people who are not getting what they need, get what they need?
Yeah, that's awesome. And so those that you're coaching them, whether they're going into a coaching, like an athletic coaching role, as well as corporate.
That's right. So the idea is, because even if you're going into a coaching role, depending on the franchise or organization that you're working in and how the job came about, you're still going to have a resume. You're still going to have to interview. You're still going to have to talk to people, network, and so forth, brand yourself, the personal branding and all the other things. And so whether you want to continue to stay in some sports related capacity or shift to something that's non-sports related from a corporate perspective, those are things we just discussed, because again, the fundamentals don't change. Because you can get in and do the job because you have the athletic or sports background, and you have the know-how to help the team that you may be working with. But again, in terms of actually getting in the door and having the right conversations, and because even if you have the connections, if you don't know what conversations to have or how to present yourself in those conversations, it's still not going to be successful. And so I help the athletes, depending on, no matter which direction they want to go in, giving them the fundamentals they need to successfully make that transition.
Got it. That's awesome. So most of your clients are going in what direction?
So most of the clients that I have are looking to go into a role that's sports related. So many of them want to do coaching or player agent, or working in a kind of working with a team or some sports related capacity. But I do have some who are also looking to, I want to go into marketing, or I want to go into something else. But many of them, they want to stay connected to sports in some way. But I would say, right now, like I said, we also have some folks who are still looking to do something completely different, that they've hung up their shoes, they put away their basketball, and they want to try something completely different. So we talk about different career opportunities that can, that their skills are applicable to.
Yeah, and even with that marketing, they can actually, be in sports marketing. So, and that probably will find themselves back to
Absolutely.
that, right?
Absolutely. For sure. For sure.
So you talked a lot about what you're doing with your clients, and it all falls up under Rock Career Development. Tell us more
That's right.
about Rock Career Development. Like, what haven't we talked about so far?
So in terms of Rockford Development and what we haven't discussed, so one key thing that is actually being worked on right now is that we're launching a group coaching program for athletes. So right now, the work that I do is one-on-one in nature. But I'm looking to launch a group coaching program. So it's a 60-day program with a variety of modules to take you from mindset and clarity all the way through salary negotiation, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship, and your crushing your first 90 days on the job. A lot of times when people talk about careers and getting ahead in your career and making connections and job search and everything, we kind of start there instead of going back to the very beginning as to who are you? What is it that you want to do? What excites you? What do you find interest in? So many people, the reason why they hop from job to job and they're struggling in their search is because they never took the time to assess, what do I even want to do? What do I like doing? What skills do I even like using? What problems do I like solving, and so on? And so we start there. And also it's mindset and mental health. If you feel like you don't have a purpose, or if you feel like you don't have an identity, or some of the things that athletes truly struggle with when they're exiting, it's hard for you to focus on, well, let me put a resume together, let me brand myself, and like you're not even there mentally. So you've got to start with the foundational work. For my program, I'm partnering with a mental health professional to help cover some of these mental wellness topics. And then, like I said, you progress through the modules, over the 60 days, so that by the end of the program, the athletes will feel like, okay, I have an arsenal of resources. I've learned, kind of the essential things I need to know to now successfully engage in my job search. And I don't feel lost. The goal is that by the end, that you no longer feel lost. You have a strategy, you have a game plan that you've already begun to execute, because the goal is that as we go through the program, you've already started to execute the things and leverage the things you're learning. And so that by the end, you feel empowered, equipped, you feel like that you had the right intentions as you're engaging in your search. So that's one of the key things that we, that we're about to launch. And then also, we're also seeking new partnership opportunities with nonprofit organizations, sports associations, and universities and colleges, so that we can share more with their student athlete population, or the kind of retiring or transitioning athlete populations that they serve. Because the goal is to reach as many athletes as we. It doesn't allow us to impact as many people as we would like to with Rock Career Development. And so we're also working on some additional partnerships so that we can share more of this knowledge and take some of the pressure off the organizations who may not have the expertise or the resources to be able to share this depth of content. Because someone who's a resume writer is not necessarily a career coach, right? Somebody who can tell you how to put a resume together cannot tell you how to go from soup to nuts from a career development or career advancement strategy. And so those are some of the key things that we're working on at Rock Career Development.
Yeah, that all sounds awesome. And that mental health is very, very important and very vital. What led you to add that as part of your curriculum?
Because a couple of different things. So one, as I coached longer and longer when it comes to corporate professionals, I realized that I was getting a lot of or many of the clients were getting stuck at the same point, because I would ask certain questions about, okay, well, how do you want me to put your resume together in LinkedIn? And we're talking through things, and it was very clear that they had no idea what they wanted to do. So instead of taking their money, a lot of times I said, hey, I'm not going to take your money because you've got to do some clarity work. And then finally, when I launched my own signature coaching program for corporate professionals, I put the clarity piece and the mindset piece at the very beginning, because I realized that there's no success if there's no clarity up front. And so then in speaking with athletes before even forming the program, that's one of the things that they struggle with is that, hey, I'm still trying to figure out who I am outside of sports. I'm still trying to figure out what my identity is and what my future is going to be like. So, trying to put a resume together and negotiate salary or launch a business or any of those things, I'm not even there. So I realized that they too need that clarity work and that mental health work.
Yeah. And so, thinking about everything that you're doing, do you foresee working with high school students?
Absolutely. That would be my ultimate goal as well, is that, because we have to start as early as we can.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm seeing with many pro athletes is that, had someone given them some insight ahead of time, things may have turned out differently. They may not have had to stumble. They may have chosen a different major in college or whatever it might be. And so if I have the opportunity to speak with high school students, that's a goal, because and it's not to crush dreams or anything, but the truth is not everybody's going to go to the league, right? If, when we look at the statistics, only, 2% or less of student athletes go pro. So as a high school student, sure, you could be the breakout star, but is that the likelihood? And again, that's not trying to be negative, but it's realistic so that people understand their options and can be prepared. And if we can help high school students understand, hey, you can prepare and work hard in your sport and perform at a high level, but your education is important, and the major you will select in college will be important, so that whenever your playing time ends, because nobody plays forever, Michael Jordan and Kobe, they didn't play forever. At some point when you have to transition out of sports, you want to make sure that you have a landing in something else, that you have something else you can do, something else you can rely on, other skills and qualifications you can rely on. So that's the goal as well, is to hopefully start as early as we can, and talking to high school students so they can start to make the right choices even before they get to college.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to take another pause. So with anyone that's listening, if you have a comment or you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. I'll bring you up to the stage. Otherwise, you can just send me a message on LinkedIn and I'll ask your question for you or read your comment. Also, Conversations in Black is building a community. So make sure that we're following one another, we're connecting with one another, and that we're supporting, what we're doing, our various endeavors. So out of those that you are coaching, that you've coached, Julia, since 2013, what are like the top 3 things that if you could go back, right? Like maybe even at high school, you would make sure that you tell them, these are the 3 things that you really need to get clear about, you really need to focus on.
Man, so 3 things. Number 1 is relationship building and networking. People seek to try to build relationships now only when they need a job. And sometimes it's awkward, it feels transactional, people don't know how to do it. And so what I would tell folks is to treasure the relationships and nurture the relationships that you build all throughout your life, whether it's high school, whether it's college, because you never know who may be in a position to open a door for you, open a conversation for you. So I would emphasize the importance of relationship building and networking.
Yes.
I would also, advocate for thinking about what it is that you truly want to do. I know that will change over time, but it's, what I have found is even with people that I knew in college, it's like, oh, well, I just did something because everyone said I was good at it, or it was easier than other degrees and other things like that. And so by the time they graduate and they struggle to get a job, because people didn't think things through. And so if you have the opportunity, even at the high school level, do some evaluation as to what do I really want to do and what kind of careers exist out there. And again, not looking to crush dreams. I mean, because you can make money doing just about anything these days, but it's about taking a good hard look at that, and not kind of, playing your way or wasting your time away in high school and college and then trying to figure out when you graduate, because by then, you're already circling. And then I would also say, get a strong sense of self. And because I also goes to the point I made about the things that you want to do and getting clear on careers, but getting a strong sense of self, because then that will allow you to, that when things don't go your way from a career perspective, or you need to advocate for yourself in a certain way and have confidence, it's a lot easier when you have a strong sense of self. And what you as an individual deserve, who you are, and knowing that nothing that exists outside of you defines you. Because for many athletes or even corporate professionals, when you speak to them and they lose their job or something happens, they begin to question themselves and question who they are. And it's like, this job doesn't define you. This sport doesn't define you. You define you. And so if we can instill that message in people younger and younger, even at the high school or junior high school level, understanding to get a strong sense of self, so that when things are taken away from you or things happen, that you don't lose that, because then you don't find yourself taking on opportunities that you don't want, putting yourself in situations that you don't want, that are toxic, that are not paying you well, where you're not being treated well. Because you have that strong sense of self and who you are. So those are the three things that I would say right now, relationship building and networking, getting an idea as to what you want to do, and don't try to wait to think about that until after you graduate from college. And then building that strong sense of self, that strong sense of identity and purpose, so that you don't get attached to things that are external to you.
No, and I agree with all of those, right? And I'm even thinking about, when we saw starting in 2020, the summer of 2020, and after the murder of George Floyd, people were starting to wake up and say, you know what? I choose me. And often that choosing me meant I'm leaving where I'm at, and either I'm going somewhere else, I'm retiring, I'm just quitting. They made a decision. I feel that so many people recognized and realized who they were and what it is that they wanted and what they didn't want, and made a decision that I'm not going to accept anything other than what I want. So everything that you said, your 3 pointers are absolutely key. And I especially hone in on the second point about what do you truly want to do, and a third one about getting a strong sense of self. And I wondered, I'm going to ask this question: when you were in high school or even younger, whatever it is that you wanted to do at that time, are you doing it? Or is what you're doing, reflecting back on what you wanted to do and why you wanted to do it, are you doing that thing for those same reasons? If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes. And so, when I was in high school, I remember wanting to be a lawyer. And part of it was because I like debating people, but it was also because I wanted the opportunity to advocate for other people. When I was younger, when I was a child, I wanted to be a ballerina, and again, I have no abilities, no athletic or physical abilities, so that went out the window pretty early. But like I said, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a lawyer because I wanted to advocate for people. And so it's funny that fast forward now, I'm nowhere near the legal field at all. But I still have the opportunity to advocate for people, and better yet, help teach them to advocate for themselves. And so I am excited about the fact that little piece still stuck with me years later, because I went through kind of different phases of, okay, I wanted to be the first woman investment banker at one point, and all kinds of stuff. But I tie back to that legal profession because, again, that was around advocating for people. And now I have the opportunity to teach people and give them the tools to advocate on their own behalf and letting them know what self-advocacy looks like. And then, when I have an opportunity to speak for others, I always take it, but it's important for me to help folks and equip them with what they need to be able to advocate for themselves. But yeah, I wonder what would happen if I became a ballerina.
Right. You still advocate. You would advocate for Black ballerinas, Black women ballerinas, okay, right? Because it's not very many. So you probably would still advocate. So I asked that question because, for me, when I graduated high school, I was pursuing social work. And I made the decision, I'm not going to continue with social work because I would have needed to get a master's to get money. And at that time, I was more focused on money. And then fast forward to what I've been doing for the last 5 to 6 years, which is corporate. My corporate space is diversity and inclusion. And then for this past year and a half, talent development. And so I thought about it. I'm like, that's all kind of in the same social work family, right? It's similar. It's like in the same house. And then I said, you know what? So the reason why I wanted to get into social work is the reason that I'm doing what I am doing, right? So elevating for women of color, elevating women of color voices, amplifying Black excellence. And then with the sailing thing, like I'm doing all of that because I want to impact people. So why I wanted to get into social work is the same reason why I'm doing what I'm doing today. So now what I say is follow your purpose, like figure out what your purpose is, figure out what you're passionate about, and follow that, and the money will come. That's what I say today.
And I will say, because there are different schools of thought of, hey, sometimes, passion doesn't necessarily pay the bills. Depending on the passion that you have and the field that you're going into. But I do think, and what I have coached clients on, especially in the corporate space, is that, hey, your passion, if helping people is your passion, maybe your ministry is not, if you're trying to make a certain amount of money, maybe your ministry is not necessarily working in a nonprofit, right? But in terms of impacting populations, is there a way that you can work in a for-profit organization and still serve those groups? So whether it's working in corporate social responsibility and so on, community outreach and or leading the philanthropy arm, there's still an opportunity for you to still create an impact and still maybe reach those same communities and leverage that passion, but maybe it's not, and maybe it looks a little different.
Yes.
But again, to your point, it's getting to the core of what is it that I want to do and why do I want to do it? And like I said, for me, it was about how can I help people? How can I advocate for people? And I'll tell you a quick story. When I was younger, I used to find that people would always randomly tell me their life story. So I would be waiting at the bus stop to go to school or to come back from school. And I'd ask somebody, hey, do you have the time? Oh, it's 10:15. And then the person would start to tell me their story. And I'm just like, oh, what is happening? And so I remember, at one point I told my mom, I said, because my sister studied social work. And I told her, I said, my sister's the one who studied social work. I'm in high school, getting ready to go to college. Why is everybody telling me their life story? And she said, you never know why, there's something about you that draws people in that they want to tell you about their story. And so now with being a career coach, I have the opportunity to listen to people's stories actively. And so you never know how life pans out or how certain things that may have happened to you, how it can all bring you to this place. And again, it leads into your purpose. So like I said, my purpose is to serve others. And clearly from an early age, people saw something in me that they wanted to share their stories. And now I have the opportunity to listen to their stories on a regular basis and hopefully use those stories to help them see a path forward for their careers.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I ask a question that I did receive in my inbox, I love the perspective that you just gave, right, on what I said about the passion and following that. So now I'm going to tweak it to basically, I'm still follow your passion, your purpose, and figure out how to make money doing it. So
That's it.
that's my new one.
How to get paid.
Okay, get paid doing it. Yeah, there we go. So that's my new twist to that. So I appreciate that. So here's the question. Now, how did you get into coaching?
So I actually started coaching just informally. So back in 2006, so just going to date myself here. I was in college in the year 2006. I was spending a lot of time in the Career Services Center at my college. The business school had it had like a dedicated Career Services Center. So I spent a lot of time there learning, going to workshops, because I said, I'm not going to be one of those people struggling to get a job when I graduate. I'm going to try to learn all the skills now. I'm going to get an internship and so on. But I soaked up a lot of the skills because I went to every workshop they had, every mock interview. I soaked up a lot of knowledge from that. And so my sister asked me for help with her resume at one point, and then one of my friends asked me for help with their resume at one point. And so I just started to help people with resumes and cover letters. And then people would come to me, after I had helped them with their resume and say, well, hey, what do you think about this job? Or what do you think about this? And so I kind of started to informally coach people from there as well. And so I really built the skills, and then, kind of just on the job. Because I also was working in corporate once I graduated from college, and I learned a great deal, especially because they had leadership development programs and rotational programs that I learned from. So it was really, so I don't have an HR background. And I can say unequivocally that I've helped a lot of people get high paying careers, leave toxic environments, get into leadership, become successful executives, all without an HR background. But it's because I kind of did the groundwork, working with people, getting paid no money, and then getting paid very little money at the very beginning, and just building up the skills and building up case studies as I went. And then in 2013, I coached one of my friends to his first 6-figure job. And he said, hey, I appreciate the free help, but I really think you should start charging people. Because he's like, you're really good at this. And like I said, that was at the same time I was in my corporate job when I was recruiting, and I was seeing the difference in how Black candidates were performing versus other candidates. And I said, hey, I have these skills to hopefully help level the playing field, and I clearly can get people results. Now's the time to make this a business.
That's awesome. And congratulations to you. Although it's not new, but still, congratulations to you for recognizing what your purpose is, and that's to serve others, and walking in that, and the impact that you've had on other people. Kudos to you. And
thank you.
Yes. And so we probably have less than a minute left. So I do want to thank, So I want to thank the listeners that are here. Everybody I see is first time. So I hope you come back next week. Wednesdays at 6 p.m. I have these conversations with different people. You can go to DaninaElguera.com and go to Conversations in Black, and you'll be able to see the different topics that are coming. And I really enjoy having these conversations, right? So LinkedIn audio is new. So this is something new that LinkedIn is beta testing, and, stepping into that Clubhouse space and all of that. So it's a way to connect. So make sure you all are following one another, and again, supporting one another. And so Julia, before we say goodbye, what would you like to leave our listeners with?
Get clear on what you want. It's never too late to do that. No matter where you are in your career, no matter how long you've been there, take the time to get clear on what you want. And even if you've had a 20-year career and you're like, I'm done with this, that's okay. You can successfully transition and pivot to something that will be more meaningful, fulfilling, and rewarding for you. So take the time to get clear on what you want. It's never too late.
That's awesome. And it's too bad we are out of town, because there's one or two people who have done just that, right? And we could have heard from them, and they could have shared, like, are they happy with the decisions that they've made? But I'm sure that they are. So Julia rocks. Thank you so much for checking in from Buenos Aires, hailing from Bronzeville. I appreciate,
awesome.
I appreciate you so much. And I definitely appreciate the listeners. Again, we'll be back next week with a different speaker. So thank you all, and happy Easter and Good Friday to those who celebrate.
Thank you so much for having me, Deneen. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.